Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles and cousins, of course, and nanas and papas, or if you prefer, grandmothers and grandfathers, and baseball fans everywhere. Hello and welcome to this edition of the Valley Baseball League podcast. My name is Graham Knight, and on behalf of the Valley Baseball League and the teams in this league, it is my pleasure to welcome you here tonight to a place we call the Analytic Zone. Yeah. I know that it should read something along the lines of this. It's in the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fear and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of the imagination. It is the area which we call the Twilight Zone. You know, I've taken a few liberties. Personally, I think it sounds a lot better like this. It's in the middle ground between home plate and home plate, between the math of 6 plus 4 plus 3 equals 2, and the superstition that has players everywhere not changing their underwear for the entire season. And it lies between the windup and the summit of his accomplishments. This is the dimension of the analytic, a place we call the Analytic Zone. John, a couple of days ago we were discussing the all-decade team, and the name Mike Garza came up. What can you tell us about Mike?
Yeah, Mike played in the Valley League 2 seasons, 2009, 2010, both for Woodstock. And since the All-Decade team was chosen from the 2010 season on, he made the first team for how good he was in 2010.
All right, let's give him a round of applause there.
All right. Hey, so we're going to play the game, Where Are They Now, and What Are They Doing? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the game stage, Mike Garza himself. Mike, welcome. It's great to have you here. Talk to us a little bit. How are you? Where are you? And what are you doing there?
Well, first of all, obviously, thanks for having me on board. I'm excited to do this with you guys. I'm currently residing in Charlottesville, Virginia. Doing the best we can to kind of ride out, what are some crazy times. Just had a virtual birthday party. My son turned 1.
Oh,
that's
wow.
awesome.
I guess on Thursday, but we had a party for him, and it's. I think we're all just trying to find a way to create some normalcy. But I'm here in Charlottesville. I've been working for the University of Virginia in their baseball program for the last 2 years, and I've been really fortunate to be able to do that and continue to just kind of stay in baseball. As a coach or support staff, and just continue to ride it out even after the playing days. So
yeah, what's your role with the UVA program?
So I'm the coordinator of video and scouting.
Okay.
I handle a lot of really like all of our game film, practice film, opponent scouting. As we dive into this world of analytics and technology, there's a little bit there that we're diving into and seeing what the best fits for our players and things that we can do to help them get better. So,
we had a great conversation with your head coach Brian O'Connor a few episodes back, which, by the way, I think has overtaken the number 1 position in most views of all of our podcasts. Graham, we'll double check on that, but
try and give him a run for his money today, huh?
Yeah, well, he's killing Ryan Fecto from Virginia Tech. So you can tell your cohorts at Virginia Tech that Brian O'Connor's interview is getting a lot more play.
Yeah, it's official. The rivalry is alive and well on YouTube as well as on the Baseball Diamond.
Yes. Yeah, and Brian O'Connor's podcast is also beating out that of LSU's Eddie Smith and Georgia Tech's what was his name?
Dan Jaffe.
Dan Jaffe, yeah. So go UVA. But Mike, having had a great conversation with Coach O'Connor, tell us from your perspective, how great of a baseball guy is he? He's obviously a great guy overall, and what are you learning from him?
I think you nailed it, right? He's an incredible person, and I think that's, you're in a business of dealing with people as a coach and as a leader of a program. And so I think that's what really makes him so special. I know for, obviously for me and my experience, but I think for all the players and the coaches and support staff and everybody that he has to interact with on a daily basis, that's what makes him as good as he is and why he's as successful as he has been. So I've learned a lot from him. I mean, you've got the game of baseball doesn't change. You move from different levels and different programs, and there's a consistency there, right? Um, certain ways that people phrase things and whatnot, and you can learn some things here and there. But what for me, the biggest thing I've learned is just one, how to interact with people every day, how to run a program, how to be a better leader. I think those are things that separate coaches and business people, and just everything about the community. That's what it's kind of all about.
I've heard that a number of times over the course of these now almost 30 some odd video podcasts. It's all about the richness of the community. So let's get the time machine fired up and let's go back to the season before you joined the Valley League. Why did you pick the Valley League? And, what did you get out of it?
So I didn't pick the Valley League. I was handed an envelope that had the Woodstock River Bandits logo. So at my freshman year, I guess it would have been the fall of 2008, I believe. Yeah. I got an envelope that had a contract to go play summer baseball in the Valley League. I was a freshman at Stanford, and our assistant coach handed me that contract. And I said, okay, I signed it. And, that summer I was off to Woodstock. So that was my first, I guess my second experience with summer baseball. I actually played in the Hawaii Collegiate League out of high school. And so I was a little familiar with it, but went down there and then I ended up transferring after that season, transferred from Stanford to Georgetown. And actually then chose to go back to the Valley League that second year in 2010. So that year was my choice. But yeah. The area, the host family, the league itself, the competitiveness, the number of guys that are getting drafted. I mean, those are all things that went into my decision that second year around and choosing to go there.
Hey, for guys who haven't, are thinking about coming and playing summer ball, what do you say they get out of it, or why would you recommend it, or maybe not recommend it?
I think everyone's situation is different, right? I think position players and pitchers have different things that they're trying to do. For me as an infielder, it's about excuse me, guys. It's about getting more game reps, about getting more at bats, learning how to play every day. Right, you go from college to pro ball, and there's a like your hat says, right, gateway to the majors. You're preparing yourself for that.
What were you hoping to get out of summer ball?
So for me, it was just going to play and get extra reps, right? I mean, so my freshman year, I played in like 4 games. I think I had like 5 at bats at Stanford. And then when I transferred that year, I couldn't play, as a sophomore at Georgetown. So I was really using the Valley League to go and play. I mean, those were my game reps. Those were my bats that I was getting my first years of college. I think once you're down there, you learn that, you learn how to play every day. You get to, interact with kids from different schools and hear what they're doing and how they train. And, so there's a lot of other things that go with it.
Yeah. So I just want to follow up with that. So Mike, I don't know if you realize it, but you managed to hold the spot on the all-decade team for 10 years. I mean, to me, that's it's one to make the all-decade team. That's pretty cool. But nobody's challenged that. I mean, I know it's fairly competitive, John. You'll have to catch us up. But you've held that spot for 10 years. 10 people, I think about all that. 11 teams in the league. Let's just say an average of 10. So, assuming there are only 40 guys came in, you've held that spot for 10 years. How does that feel?
I mean, until you guys brought it up, I hadn't really thought about it, but it's obviously an honor. I mean, I know what kind of players have played in that league. I think a lot of that just has to do with some of the guys. I think Corey Spangenberg was on that list as well, and I remember playing against him and kind of battling with him, going back and forth. And we used to talk about it in games that we played. He'd be 2 for 4 and I'd try and go 3 for 4, just to duke it out with him. And I think that competition is what created that. But, it's an honor and I'm humbled by it for sure.
Yeah, so I grew up in Colorado, and they said that you're only as good as the people you ski with, right? If you ski with people who don't really know how to ski, you're never going to ski anything challenging. It sounds like that rivalry. I mean, you're really clearly playing with some good people. Catch us up. So you came in, you played a couple seasons in the Valley League, and then what happened? Talk to us a little about your baseball career from there.
After that season in the Valley, I was able to secure a contract in the Cape. And so, I guess I first and foremost, I went back to school, played that spring. And then the summer of 2011, got a chance to go play up in Cape Cod with the Harwich Mariners. Played for Coach Steve Engler, and just an incredible group of guys, obviously supremely talented, but a good group of people too. So, we were fortunate. We ended up winning the league that summer, which was an awesome experience. And then I went back to school for my senior year, played my senior year, got drafted by the Brewers in the 20th round of 2012.
Okay.
Played between the minor league system with the Brewers and independent ball for about 5 years, up to 2016, I believe, was the last season I played.
Mike, can you talk a little bit about what happened in your pro debut in Helena in the Pioneer League? A lot of guys struggle when they go into pro ball, and you very clearly did not struggle. You went, 33 for 81 in your pro debut. Tell us a little bit about that.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you really. I went in, coming off of our college season, and just went in there to play. I think like anything in baseball, right, you can be hot, and what you don't see in that pro debut is when I got moved from the Pioneer League to the Midwest League, I might have been 3 for 137 at bats. So, and I think that's just baseball. Part of it is, kind of riding the ups and the downs. And I happened to, to be on one of those streaks that was up in the Pioneer League, and it kind of helped me move to the Midwest League pretty quickly. But when I got there, I fell flat on my face. It was a little bit better competition. I struggled. And it was good for me because I went back to that league the next year. So, obviously we all want to do well, when we're there, but the game humbles you really quickly. And I learned that very, very early in my pro career.
Hitting is hard, isn't it? Like, I think it's got to be one of the toughest things to do in all of athletics.
Well, yeah. Well, so when you're going well, it seems really easy. And when you're not going well, it seems like the hardest thing in the world to do. So, yeah, no, for sure. It's incredibly difficult. The cliche, it's the hardest thing to do in sports. And again, but it's probably one of the most rewarding things, because when you're having success, man, those highs are really high. And you just have to learn how to handle the lows, and try and shrink them and condense that amount of time that you're struggling.
Hey, so John, while you're there and looking at it, what was Mike's stat line from 2010 on the year he made the All-Decade team?
Yeah, over 40 games and 170 at bats. Mike hit 388, 403, 565, with 13 doubles, 4 triples, 3 home runs, and also stole 23 bases. Only got caught 4 times.
That's the one that jumps out to me, because that's a lot of steals for 40 games. You stole a base every other game, Mike? Was that your niche on the team, or tell us about that aspect of your game?
It actually was never really part of my game.
No?
To be honest with you, it was something. So interestingly enough, 2009, I was working out at Stanford on the field with a teammate, and I tweaked, pulled, did something to my hamstring. And so I fought that the whole 2009 season. I was kind of bandaged up and had like a sling type deal because I wanted to play. I hadn't played very many games. So going into the 2010 season, during that fall and spring at Georgetown, because I had to sit out, I really focused on like getting in the weight room and running. My roommate and I would go on these long runs down by the monuments in DC. And so I think, my physique changed a little bit. And I don't want to say that it was a goal of mine, but I thought like, hey, maybe I can add this into my repertoire of tools. Right. And it just kind of worked out. I think it's just something that happened. And I don't know that I ever stole 23 bases combined after that and all the years I played. So
Was it something about the catchers in the league, or
no, I don't think so. I've always felt like I was a savvy base runner. I just never felt like I was a base stealer or a guy that had speed.
well, for a guy that goes to Stanford and Georgetown, you certainly know how to outthink a team, I would imagine.
Well, I think you start looking at the game, right? And you start picking certain counts to run on, and you understand when guys may bury a slider or put a curveball in the dirt, and those are typically good running counts. You may be able to catch some guys at second base, right? You can catch them kind of napping in certain situations. Pitchers are creatures of habit, and they have routines and tendencies that they get into, and part of the game is figuring out what those are, right? Do they come set, with the same count every time? Do they look to second base a certain number of times and then always pitch home? So those are things that, like, whether you have speed or not, right? If you start to look at those things, you can do it. And I think that season was just me kind of testing that out, and it worked out.
Well, I've got to say, you wondered if you stole that many bases in the rest of your career.
I don't
John
think I did.
knows.
So
John
I'm
knows.
looking at it right now. So
yeah, well, hold on.
You stole-
Stat man.
You stole 23 bases in one summer in Woodstock. Your next 2 seasons at Georgetown, you stole exactly 23 bases over those 2 seasons. And then in pro ball, you're not going to believe this, but from
Maybe 2.
No, 23 total in all
Really?
of those. So 23 is obviously your number.
What was your favorite jersey number, Mike? Was it 23? If you say 23, I'm going to have.
It was not. It was
freak out.
close. 21 was always.
Oh, okay.
was always the-
All right, so write those 2 numbers down, get a $2, and go play Powerball right now.
Yeah.
That's
Hey,
really
so-
that's interesting.
All right, baseball fans, I really hate to interrupt this conversation, but there are 3 important pieces of business I have to get to. Have to. First, please subscribe, like, and share us. Really super important to get the word out about the Valley Baseball League. We're in the top 10 of all summer collegiate wood bat leagues. We're in the National Alliance of Collegiate Summer Wood Bat Leagues. It's a alliance of 12 leagues, including the Cape Cod League. We're one of only a few leagues sponsored by Major League Baseball. We want to let people know what's happening in the Valley, what's good about this organization, and why they want to be involved. So help us do that. Also, if you've got any questions, comments, thoughts, please share them. We'd love to hear from you. vbleague@isomermedia.com. That's vbleague@isomermedia.com. And I would be absolutely remiss if I did not pay tribute to our great sponsor, Grace Burrows. The two last years, I'm not sure if that's a sentence, but it sounds kind of cool. The 2 last years of Valley Baseball League live streams would not have happened if it were not for the contributions and support of Grace Burrows. Here's her latest book. If you haven't gotten it, support her by reaching out and getting it. It's a great read. She's a great writer. I'm happy to say I was one of her first readers. Anyway, take a look. All right, now it's time to get back to a place we call the analytics zone. Let's go back to, you said you've kind of gone into and out of hitting streaks and slumps. Now that you're kind of into coaching, think about some guy who might be struggling at the plate. What advice would you give them for, how do you get out of a slump? How do you ride it? Any thoughts on pulling yourself out?
I think that varies by the individual, right, and their personality and what their outlook on it is. You know, what they're looking like. You know, how they're just how they're handling it. I saw a quote once. I was in a batting facility. I might have been like 12 or 13 years old, and it said, "A hitting slump is like a common cold, right? There's no remedy for it. You just wait it out." And there's a lot of truth to that, right? But I think you can dig yourself into a deeper hole, right? Guys get frustrated. They try and do more. They try and make adjustments physically that they maybe don't need to make. And so I think the key to it, what I would tell guys, is to try and avoid getting into those slumps. You're going to get into them, but if you can hone your craft and you can maintain your swing and do that daily maintenance that goes on not only physically but mentally, prepare yourself for the pitchers you're going to face. Know what's going on. You end up taking those slumps, and which for me, what you want to do is you want to try and like have those lows and just shrink that amount of time. Instead of it being a 50 at bat slump, it's a 20 at bat slump. And then you ride the highs to be 50, 60 at bat highs. If you can do that through the course of the season, right, you're going to have your ups and downs, but you're going to be trending upwards. So I think that's, for me, that's the biggest thing is just trying to stretch out the high points and minimize the low points.
Yeah, well said.
Well, I want to go back to your experience as a VBL player, as a young guy after your freshman year in college. Where did you grow up originally? Where did you go to high school?
So I grew up in San Antonio, Texas. I went to Douglas MacArthur High School.
Oh, yeah. Familiar name there. So big city, San Antonio, you went to Stanford, and then you end up in Woodstock, Virginia for the summer.
After Hawaii, right?
Well, that's right. Yes, after Hawaii. So
yeah, surf or ski. Let's go canoe.
Woodstock's a phenomenal little town. Great community. But it's a little different from those other locations you had lived and played. Tell us about what it was like when you arrived.
I didn't have a ton. Like for me, it wasn't a huge adjustment. Interestingly enough, right, it's very different. I agree with you there. But I wanted to get out. Like I wanted to be away from San Antonio, right? I wanted to get out and kind of be on my own. And so Stanford was like as far as I could go. And then I went as far as I could go the other direction, right? And so I think for me, it was like, hey, this is just another experience, right? I didn't look at it as anything different. Now, I will say, that community was very welcoming. I lived for 2 years with the same host family, which was tremendous. They're tremendous. I still Thanksgiving this year, I drove down to Woodstock and went to see them and spent a few hours at their house. So that's probably the biggest part of it, right? I mean, these people open up their doors to you and you're living with them. And so a lot of your experience, I think, in summer baseball has to do with your host family and the experience that you have with them. Obviously there's baseball, but I would argue that may be more impactful with regards to your experience than what happens on the field.
You stayed with the Black family, didn't you?
I did. Yeah. Tim and Kathy. Actually, I stayed with them. My middle brother stayed with them, and my youngest brother stayed with them.
That's amazing.
It's funny. The Valley League has like ties just in my family. Obviously, my brothers all played in Woodstock, stayed with the Blacks. So that's where I say,
amazing.
like, man, the host families are, a huge part of summer baseball at any league. And you develop these connections that like ours is kind of unique, but it's really cool to have that.
Yeah, I've been surprised. I mean, we hosted a player for a short bit a season or two ago. And then, for me, I'm a hockey player, so what do I know about baseball? But the more I do the Valley Baseball League story and the more I kind of peel back the onion, one of the themes that's run super deep when it comes to these video podcasts is kind of the connection between the players and the host families. I mean, these are ties that last for decades. Hey, so John, it's your turn. You have Mike here. He's been on your all-decade team for, I know it's only been a couple months, but really for 10 years. What questions do you have for the superstar?
Well, I was actually going to ask Mike about your brothers coming to Woodstock as well. What influence did you have in them making that decision, and what can you tell us about that?
Well, I encourage both of them, obviously, to go play there. And, quite frankly, I think the Blacks had a lot to do with that, right? Like, you know what situation you're going to get into. Where you're going to be, where you can work out. I remember talking to Eric, my middle brother, and I said, hey, you can go here, you can go. I can't remember the name of the gym, but I'm pretty sure it's attached to like a roller skating rink. And you're going to work at Schaefer's Deli, and you're going to make sandwiches and deliver them. It's the same. It's literally the exact same thing they're doing now. Ramon, my youngest brother, played there in 2018, right?
Yeah.
And same thing. I said Schaefer's Deli. You're delivering to the same people that I was delivering to, right? And so you just know what you're going to get into. And then, me being here in Charlottesville, Ramon came and played for the Tom Sox last season, so he could live with us here. And his nephew was born earlier that summer, so it was cool for him to be able to do that. But for sure, yeah. I mean, I encourage him to go down there and play.
Well, Mike, so how's this spring been? How you're obviously your college season got cut short and no ball anywhere going on right now. How are you staying busy and getting through this tough time?
Man, we're doing what we can, right? I mean, you try and keep a routine. With a 1-year-old, it's easy to do that, right? We're up at 6:45, 7 o'clock every morning. But I think, you kind of find the silver lining. It's been really as disappointed as I am in not being able to be out on a field. And, we'd probably be right around conference tournament time, coming up. And that's obviously, it's what you work for all year. It's what you put in all that time for. On the flip side of that, I've gotten to be home and I've gotten to see some things, with my family that I probably wouldn't have been able to see. I mean, little one started walking, for the first time, and it starts to kind of say some words, right? And these are things that when you're on the road, sometimes you miss them. And so I think you just have to take it for what it is, right? We're all kind of in the same situation. So it's been a blessing in disguise in that regard. But I think everyone in this house is ready for me to get out and get back to work too. So
yeah. Hey, so I got to ask you, you're standing over the sun, right?
Yes.
You're standing over your son's crib and you look down. Can you tell, is he going to be a pitcher? Is he a position player? Is he 3/4 sidearm?
Or is he Stanford or Georgetown?
I think so I bought him a tee for his birthday. My wife's she's a dancer. She's musically inclined, right? And he wants nothing to do with the tee, but he's all about all the instruments around. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a work in progress, but we'll see how that shakes out.
When he gets to it, he won't have any trouble finding his rhythm at the plate, right?
Hopefully.
All right, so we're gonna have to wrap this up. Mike, what thoughts do you have for us, kind of imparting, either for players who are thinking about playing summer ball, for players who can't play? What final thoughts do you have for us on baseball, on what you've learned or what you wish you could impart?
I think I encourage guys to just kind of cherish those opportunities, right? I mean, they come and go. It's crazy sitting here thinking it was 10 years ago, right? You have some very vivid memories of those experiences, but I think you make the most of your opportunities, right? I mean, you can look at going to a place like Woodstock or anywhere else for summer ball and be like, man, I got to be here all summer. Or you can embrace that opportunity and say, hey, look, I'm going to make the most out of it. And I think, my time in Woodstock and I'm sure a lot of other players all throughout the Valley League has helped to either propel their career or build relationships with people they would have never met. So, I mean, that's what I would, encourage guys to do is just, look at every opportunity that you're faced with or that you get to be involved with and just make the most of it, because you never know how it'll, either change the course of your life or impact it in one way or another.
Gotcha. Hey, Joe, what's your last dig at Mike Garza before you go out and try to steal 23 bases? Yeah. And picking them up one at a time doesn't count.
Yeah. I think, Mike, you had a really great summary there. It's about taking advantage of opportunities, and that's a really great lesson. And I can't say thanks enough for you joining us here today, taking some time away from your family. Tell Coach O'Connor to put you on the press box stand because you're great at being interviewed. And tell them we said hi, of course.
I'll stay away from the press box stand, but I will tell them you guys said hi.
All right.
Hey, John, how about you? Any final digs at our man, Mike Garza?
No, just it's a real pleasure to talk with you, Mike. Thanks for spending some time with us, and congrats on your great experience and your great stat line from 2010.
No, I appreciate it, and I love what you're doing with the Valley League and bringing some probably much needed attention to the guys that are playing and involved with it.
Definitely.
Thanks.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb here, Mike, and then we'll let you go. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that come the decade 2030, I'm going to bet your stat line's still way up there. All right.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks again for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Have a great day, Mike.
All right.
All right, baseball fans, that's going to wrap up this edition of The Analytics Zone. When we return tomorrow night, we're going to have one more episode of our Valley Baseball League All-Decade podcast. We're going to take apart the outfield and do a quick recap. Also, we're working on a couple more interviews. Where are they now and what are they doing there? We'll be bringing you those as soon as we can get them. Until then, we are wishing you all perfect health and wishing you all, which may look like it happened pretty soon, a speedy return to the baseball diamond. Until next time, for the Valley Baseball League and the teams in this league, I'm Graham Knight. Thanks for watching.